So this past weekend at D23, we just got our first look at the upcoming series of animated shorts, Tales of the Jedi. This trailer has instantly shot up to the top of my list for my most hyped upcoming Star Wars projects. Funny story, which is actually kind of awesome, is that Dave Filoni wrote all these episodes while flying on an airplane back and forth to the Mandalorian set. That's kind of badass. Star Wars animation led by Dave Filoni is back and looks better than ever, and the potential of this kind of format of storytelling where we get to dive deeper into the backstory of these characters and truly spend some time with them is so fascinating to me. I truly hope they continue telling more stories in this kind of Tales of the Jedi format, but one thing I've been thinking about ever since the trailer released was what characters they could do next. One of the most fascinating ideas that I had in my head was, what if they did a Tales of the Jedi like miniseries, but it was actually Tales of the Sith, where we were dropped into some of the backstories of some of our favorite dark side characters. There's so much potential for storylines for so many dark side characters and things we haven't seen about them. And so in this video, I kind of want to walk through a few stories that I think could be top choices for their own short episodes and arcs. Number 5, Young Palpatine. Now some of you may be surprised because this is one of my lower choices on the list, but it's only because I think the show could actually deserve its own spotlight in live action form. However, if they were going to do an animated version, I'd still be all in. There's so much potential in seeing Palpatine's upbringing. Seeing Palpatine's rise to power alongside his master Darth Plagueis would be incredible to see. Palpatine's origins is something I've been wanting to see from Star Wars for a long time. Palpatine is one of the biggest characters in all of Star Wars, but the fact that we haven't really dug into his past apart from the incredible Plagueis novel makes it feel like there's a bit of a hole waiting to be filled. Seeing him on his way to become Senator Palpatine of Naboo, seeing him deal with the shady parts of his past, seeing him meet Plagueis for the first time and eventually kill Plagueis in his sleep would just be incredible to see. Number 4, the Grand Inquisitor. Now this is a choice that I think will be very unexpected. And while yes, he isn't technically a Sith, he is a dark side user. We've recently seen the Grand Inquisitor in Kenobi, but we still don't know exactly who he really is. In fact, we don't know his real name at all. I think it would be super interesting to see how he actually went from being a temple guard within the Jedi Order and actually transitioned into becoming an Inquisitor working for the Empire. We know Palpatine established the Inquisitorius to be trained under Vader, but how did Palpatine actually find them? And why was he willing to accept former Jedi instead of just killing them? We know that the Grand Inquisitor was a temple guard, and maybe he was deeply affected by the speech Barriss Offee made in the Clone Wars when she criticized the Jedi for losing their way. By doing the Grand Inquisitor, you're not only fleshing out just him though, you could totally flesh out all the Inquisitor characters by showing how they got from being Jedi to Jedi hunters. Number 3, General Grievous. Now again, I know Grievous isn't technically a Sith, but close enough. He would of course fit perfectly in this little series because he is of course one with the dark side. In Legends, he has a backstory where his real name is Shilal. He was a great warrior on the planet Kali, which is also full of great warriors, but it's something that we haven't really seen or heard about much, if at all, in canon. I think it would be great to kind of reintroduce his backstory to those who haven't read those Legends novels, and show that story to a more mainstream audience. Seeing Grievous and his warrior backstory on his planet, and then of course seeing him getting injured and turned into the machine he is, would be incredibly fascinating to see. It would also be so awesome seeing him become manipulated into becoming almost an apprentice to Count Dooku, to see how he fits into the new Separatist army and becomes the leader of the droid army. That story is another big piece of Star Wars that is kind of missing, and would be so cool to see. Number 2, Young Maul. We've seen some of young Maul's backstory in some of the comics in recent years, but it's not too much to say that a lot of Star Wars fans who don't dive deep into the comics still don't know much about Maul and his upbringing. If we were to get a series of animated shorts that focus on how Maul came to be, we could see how Mother Talzin offered him to Palpatine at a young age. We could see his harsh dark side training as a young man and how he became this beast and force of nature. Sith training is still something we haven't really seen much of at all. It would also be so cool to see how both Maul and Palpatine hid in the shadows, planning their moves before their big reveal in The Phantom Menace. Maul was the first Sith the Jedi had seen in 1,000 years, and it would be super intriguing to see Palpatine's plans at that early stage. But if we didn't want to retread that ground of seeing young Maul, there are also many other storytelling opportunities for him. One thing we still are missing is what he was really up to in this time from the end of the Clone Wars to his appearance on Rebels. In Solo, we see that he is still working within the criminal underworld and in Crimson Dawn, and then in Rebels we see how he got trapped underneath Malachor and became almost like a hermit. There's a lot of untold story there, and a journey for Maul that could be fascinating to see, especially since he is one of the most interesting characters in all of Star Wars. Number 1. Ben Solo. We've had a fair amount of Kylo Ren's backstory, but not nearly enough in my opinion. While I'm not the biggest fan of the sequels, Kylo Ren is easily the best part, and is one of the most interesting new characters in recent years. I want to see more of how Ben Solo turned into Kylo in animated form. I want to see how he felt after it was unveiled to the galaxy that Vader was his grandfather. I want to see his rocky relationship with his parents Leia and Han Solo. And I want to see more of Ben's relationship with his uncle Luke in the early beginnings of his Jedi Academy. Even though I personally fundamentally disagree with Luke's direction in The Last Jedi, they could use this as a chance to try and flesh him out a little bit more. We have little to no animated content for the sequel trilogy, at least in the Clone Wars animation style. And again, although I'm not the biggest fan of the sequel trilogy, Kylo Ren is one of the most interesting characters in Star Wars, and seeing more of his upbringing would just be awesome to see. With that being said, again, I am super excited for Tales of the Jedi in October. This format of storytelling where we can do quick dives into stories for so many of these characters is going to be incredible to see, especially in this gorgeous and refined animation style. A Tales of the Sith show could be so epic, and it would allow for some of these fan favorites to be fleshed out even more, with characters like young Palpatine, Grand Inquisitor, Grievous, young Maul, Ben Solo, and potentially even more. So Lucasfilm, if you're listening and watching this video, please make Tales of the Sith, or something similar to it. Star Wars animation is honestly one of my favorite forms of storytelling in this galaxy, and I hope to see so much more of it. Before you guys go, I just want to say thank you so much for clicking on this video. It means a lot. If at any point you enjoyed this video, please click that like button, and if you want to see more Star Wars videos kind of like this, click that subscribe button as well. I'll see you guys in the next video. Sushi out.